Human beings can be awful cruel to one another. Jim said that bees won't sting idiots, but I didn't believe that, because I tried them lots of times myself and they wouldn't sting me. Right is right, and wrong is wrong, and a body ain't got no business doing wrong when he ain't ignorant and knows better. Ain't we got all the fools in town on our side? And ain't that a big enough majority in any town? What's the use you learning to do right when it's troublesome to do right and ain't no trouble to do wrong, and the wages is just the same? Sometimes you're going to get hurt, and sometimes you're going to get sick, but every time you're going to get well again. Now we'll start this band of robbers and call it Tom Sawyer's gang. Everybody that wants to join has got to take an oath and write his name in blood. Be respectful to your superiors, if you have any. The difference between the almost right word and the right word is really a large matter. 'Tis the difference between the lightning bug and the lightning. I was seldom able to see an opportunity until it had ceased to be one. I have found out that there ain't no surer way to find out whether you like people or hate them than to travel with them. The only way to keep your health is to eat what you don't want, drink what you don't like, and do what you'd druthers not. Truth is stranger than fiction, but it is because fiction is obliged to stick to possibilities. Truth isn't. He had discovered a great law of human action, without knowing it, namely, that in order to make a man or a boy covet a thing, it is only necessary to make the thing difficult to obtain. Huckleberry was cordially hated and dreaded by all the mothers of the town because he was idle, and lawless, and vulgar, and bad, and because all their children admired him so, and delighted in his forbidden society, and wished they dared to be like him. The elastic heart of youth cannot be compressed into one constrained shape long at a time. I ain't doing my duty by that boy, and that's the Lord's truth, goodness knows. Spare the rod and spile the child, as the good book says. I may laying up sin and suffering for us both, I know. He's full of the old scratch, but laws o' me. He's my own dead sister's boy, poor thing, and I ain't got the heart to lash him, somehow. Every time I let him off, my conscience does hurt me so, and every time I hit him my old heart most breaks. Tom appeared on the sidewalk with a bucket of whitewash and a long-handled brush. He surveyed the fence, and all gladness left him, and a deep melancholy settled down upon his spirit. 30 yards of board fence 9 feet high. Life to him seemed hollow, and existence but a burden. Tom was a glittering hero, once more the pet of the old, the envy of the young. His name even went into immortal print, for the village paper magnified him. There were some that believed he would be president, yet, if he escaped hanging. There was no getting around the stubborn fact that taking sweetmeats was only hooking, while taking bacon and hams and such valuables was plain simple stealing, and there was a command against that in the Bible. So they inwardly resolved that so long as they remained in the business, their piracy should not again be sullied with the crime of stealing. I could forgive the boy, now, if he'd committed 1,000,000 sins. He was not the model boy of the village. He knew the model boy very well though and loathed him. Work consists of whatever a body is obliged to do, and play consists of whatever a body is not obliged to do. Oh, they just have a bully time, take ships, and burn them, and get the money and bury it in awful places in their island where there's ghosts and things to watch. It, and kill everybody in the ships, make 'em walk a plank. They don't kill the women, they're too noble. And the women's always beautiful, too. Your country and mine is an interesting one, but there is nothing there that is half so interesting as the human mind. I have been studying the traits and dispositions of the lower animals, so-called, and contrasting them with the traits and dispositions of man. I find the result humiliating to me. What the insane father required was blood and misery. He was indifferent as to who furnished it. Providentially. That is the word. For the fly had not been left behind by accident. No, the hand of Providence was in it. There are no accidents. All things that happen, happen for a purpose. They are foreseen from the beginning of time. They are ordained from the beginning of time. The human being is a machine. An automatic machine. It is composed of thousands of complex and delicate mechanisms, which perform their functions harmoniously and perfectly, in accordance with laws devised for their governance, and over which the man himself has no authority, no mastership, no control. The tiger, yes. The law of his nature is ferocity. The law of his nature is the law of God. He cannot disobey it. It is most difficult to understand the disposition of the Bible God. It is such a confusion of contradictions, of watery instabilities and iron firmness, of goody-goody abstract morals made out of words, and concreted hell-born ones made out of acts, of fleeting kindness repented of in permanent malignities. Each human being shall have all of these in him, and they will constitute his nature. In some, there will be high and fine characteristics which will submerge the evil ones, and those will be called good men. In others the evil characteristics will have dominion, and those will be called bad men. It shows you that when people have left a reproachful vacancy in a contract, they can be as shady about it in Bibles as elsewhere. Many men pray, not many of them like to do it. A few pray long, the others make a short cut. Life was not a valuable gift, but death was. Death was man's best friend. When man could endure life no longer, death came and set him free. Man is an experiment. The other animals are another experiment. Time will show whether they were worth the trouble. It is curious the way the human mind works. The Christian begins with this straight proposition, this definite proposition, this inflexible and uncompromising proposition: God is all-knowing and all-powerful. Human history in all ages is red with blood, and bitter with hate, and stained with cruelties, but not since biblical times have these features been without a limit of some kind. Adam and Eve entered the world naked and unashamed, naked and pure-minded, and no descendant of theirs has ever entered it otherwise. All have entered it naked, unashamed, and clean in mind. They have entered it modest. Kings cannot ennoble thee, thou good, great soul, for one who is higher than kings hath done that for thee. But a king can confirm thy nobility to men. But when weariness finally forced him to be silent, he was no longer of use to his tormentors, and they sought amusement elsewhere. That which I have seen, in that little moment, will never go out from my memory, but will abide there, and I shall see it all the days, and dream of it all the nights, till I die. Would God I had been blind! What dost thou know of suffering and oppression? I and my people know, but not thou. Learning soften the heart and breadth gentleness and charity. When I am come to mine own again, I will always honor little children, remembering how that these trusted me and believed me in my time of trouble, whilst they that were older, and thought themselves wiser, mocked at me and held me for a liar. What God wills, will happen. Thou canst not hurry it, thou canst not alter it, therefore wait, and be patient. And when he awoke in the morning and looked upon the wretchedness about him, this dream had had its usual effect. It had intensified the sordidness of his surroundings 1,000-fold. The world is made wrong. Kings should go to school to their own laws, at times, and so learn mercy. Their garment? Have they but one? Ah, "Good your worship, what would they do with more? Truly they have not 2 bodies each. 5 and 20 sturdy budges, bulks, files, clapperdogeons and maunders, counting the dells and doxies and other morts. Most are here, the rest are wandering eastward, along the winter lay. We follow at dawn." I couldn't bear to think about it, and yet, somehow, I couldn't think about nothing else. I do not wish any reward, but to know I have done the right thing. The average man don't like trouble and danger. He was sunshine most always, I mean you made it seem like good weather. I don't want no better book than what your face is. All Kings is mostly rapscallions, as far as I can make out. Tom told me what his plan was, and I see in a minute it was worth 15 of mine for style, and would make Jim just as free a man as mine would, and maybe get us all killed besides. So I was satisfied, and said we would waltz in on it. When a man loves cats, I am his friend and comrade, without further introduction. Then her conscience reproached her, and she yearned to say something kind and loving, but she judged that this would be construed into a confession that she had been in the wrong, and discipline forbade that. So she kept silence, and went about her affairs with a troubled heart. I was mighty downhearted, so I made up my mind I wouldn't never go near that house again, because I reckoned I was to blame, somehow. I knowed very well why the words wouldn't come. It was because my heart warn't right. It was because I warn't square. It was because I was playing double. I was letting on to give up sin, but away inside of me I was holding onto the biggest one of all. That's just the way a person does a low-down thing, and then he don't want to take no consequences of it. Thinks as long as he can hide it, it ain't no disgrace. That was my fix exactly. That is just the way with some people. They get down on a thing when they don't know nothing about it. Look here, if you're telling the truth you needn't be afraid nobody'll hurt you. A person's conscience ain't got no sense, and just goes for him anyway. There warn't anybody at the church, except maybe a hog or 2, for there warn't any lock on the door, and hogs likes a punchin' floor in summertime because it's cool. If you notice, most folks don't go to church only when they've got to, but a hog is different. Yet little Tom was not unhappy. He had a hard time of it, but did not know it. It was the sort of time that all the awful court boys had, therefore he supposed it was the correct and comfortable thing. When I am king they shall not have bread and shelter only, but also teachings out of books, for a full belly is little worth where the mind is starved. He lay down upon a sumptuous divan, and proceeded to instruct himself with honest zeal. He brought us clear down to the ground, nearly. He's an honest soul, and means the very best in the world, but I'm afraid he's too flighty. Washington dreamed his way along the street, his fancy flitting from grain to hogs, from hogs to banks, from banks to Iwater, from Iwater to Tennessee land, and lingering but a feverish moment upon each of these fascinations.